Late Night Health continues with a regular contributor, Dr. Greg Celaya. He is not only a doctor of chiropractic, he is also a nutritionist. He holds a master's degree in nutrition. And you have more initials after your name, Dr. Celaya, than anybody I know.
Uh-oh.
You're certified in several different areas of nutrition, are you not?
I am. You know that there's just so much knowledge out there, and you can never have enough.
And those who keep going back to school, I commend. Could you go back to school?
I got my degrees about mid-career, which... in
your 30s?
30s and early 40s, and I think the answer is no, because I don't have the discipline to sit and read anything cover to cover.
Yeah, it's difficult. I love to read.
I had to practice when I went back to school to get my undergraduate and my master's degree, and I started with, novels and things like that, and worked my way up to textbooks.
And technical textbooks as well, in your case.
To say the least.
So we're going to talk about two things with Dr. Celaya. We're going to talk about gluten-free eating. We might mention glutenfreecookies.com as well. And also breakfast. Let's start with breakfast. Dr. Celaya, cereal has been the staple for the American breakfast diet for, 100 years plus?
It's been a while. Absolutely.
And cereal is gluten, isn't it, most of it?
Well, you know what? There's many different cereals out there, and you can get plenty of great cereals that are gluten-free. The biggest problem I have with most people is getting them to eat breakfast, number one, and getting them to eat the right breakfast, even if it doesn't involve dealing with gluten or no gluten. So,
what would be a good breakfast to have then?
Well, the most common breakfast, I'm not saying it's good, but I see it all the time, is that people are eating a lot of fruit juices.
Right.
Which is an absolute disaster right off the bat.
But to me, it would seem that it would spike your blood sugar immediately.
It spikes blood sugar, but not only that, when you spike blood sugar and you start dealing with improper blood sugar responses, it creates inflammation. And in addition to that, then you start adding gluten on top of it, and we can talk about symptoms, but you end up with a whole other ball of wax on top of it.
What I try to do for breakfast is to eat some kind of protein. Like a couple of soft-boiled eggs.
Right, and to be honest with you, that's a great start for breakfast.
I should eat more?
No. I mean, here's the problem. And we see this all the time, and if I recommend something to somebody, next thing you know, they're doing it morning, noon, and night.
Right.
And so eggs are wonderful, especially depends upon where you get them, how they're grown, what they're fed, et cetera. I mean, we can get in fact, we should do a whole show just on eggs.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But the problem is then people are eating eggs 24/7, and now you have problems.
Too much
of anything is a problem.
Right.
So I love eggs. I think they're wonderful, and I eat my share, but I don't overeat my share.
How many eggs do you eat in a week?
Anywhere between 4 and 6. Depends how big they are. Lately, we've been getting these little tiny small ones, so it's probably more.
Small chickens?
Yeah, small ones. They're kind of fun, too. They're
right. What should the average person eat? I mean, sometimes people, the research says don't eat too many eggs. 2 eggs a week is enough. Then they'll say eggs are great for you. The studies go back and forth.
Yeah, I've never changed my response on eggs. Eggs are great food for you. You just can't overdo any food whatsoever, and that includes eggs. But it depends upon how the eggs are grown, what they feed the animal. It just goes on and on. And so I make sure that mine are as close to nature as possible. We buy ours at farmers markets, or if we know somebody that's got chickens, or maybe sometimes you may even raise chickens.
I have some friends who are going to go into the chicken raising business.
Oh.
And so they had a couple of dozen chickens, and they were getting eggs, and they thought, okay, Thursday night we're going to have a chicken dinner. And the husband said to the wife, I'll cook it, you kill it. And she said, no, you don't understand. I'll cook it, you kill it. So they haven't had chicken, but they do have an awful lot of eggs.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you can overdo anything. So, but eggs are great. There are gluten-free cereals out there, but you've got to watch it with gluten-free products, just for the mere fact that usually when they are gluten-free, a lot of people end up putting a lot of other stuff in there to make up for the gluten that's not good for you.
Including more sugar.
More sugar. I mean, there is also other products that are either contaminated or cross-contaminated or other people have problems with that are very similar in response of your body, the same like gluten may be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we do a lot of testing for not only gluten, but other products that are very similar in its protein structure to gluten.
Gluten is a protein. We've discussed this before. It's a protein on the husk of the wheat.
Well, I mean, you've got different portions of gluten which we test for that are in different places. So, it's not just the problem being is that when you go into your normal doc and you say, give me a test for gluten, they're going to test a couple of different things. Well, that's not necessarily correct because there's other portions of the gluten that you may have problems with.
Now, you just said that eating, drinking like fruit juice in the morning can spike blood sugar and may cause inflammation.
Sure.
The common theory now is that inflammation is the beginning of disease.
Yes.
If you keep having a lot of inflammation, your body breaks down in some way, form, or shape, form, or of another.
Oh yeah, and you get the different symptoms of hypoglycemia or blood sugar spikes, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those symptoms can be very, very similar to gluten and what it can actually cause. I mean, some of the new research shows that gluten is a big neurological symptom causer. And so it's a big deal.
We just did a segment just before we got to you on autism. Has
right.
gluten? Is there any correlation between gluten and autism that you're aware of?
The research is out there, and it's definitely worth a shot. But I mean, when you start looking at gluten and the parts of the brain that can be affected by gluten, it's usually the cerebellum. This is part of the brain that controls motor movement, balance, that kind of thing. So, you have balance issues, vertigo, nausea, car sickness, seasickness, dizziness, dizziness or nausea looking at fast-moving objects. It can even basically start causing a problem with the coating of the nerves, the myelin sheath. And somebody can even have MS type of symptoms, believe it or not, just from gluten.
Once those symptoms manifest, they appear. If you reduce or stop your gluten intake, do the symptoms go away, or is it permanent damage?
It depends if you've created an autoimmunity. So sometimes you don't have an autoimmune response, and sometimes you do. And there is certain testing we can do to determine if you have an autoimmune type of scenario.
Our guest is Dr. Greg Celaya. He's a nutritionist and a chiropractor based in the Southern California area. We're talking about breakfast and about gluten and how it can affect each and every one of us. Can anybody eat gluten? In other words, are there some people who are more sensitive to it, or should everybody just take it out of their diet?
There are some people that are more sensitive to it, but, looking at the research that I've seen, I would just eliminate it. It just makes life a lot simpler. It's some people, hey, let's face it, some of these gluten products are wonderful. They taste fantastic. Is it worth your health? That's up to you to determine, but not for me.
Well, the gluten-free cookies that you make,
yeah,
gluten-free cookies with an S.com. This is not a paid commercial, by the way. They taste really good.
Well, they taste good, but we built them with the idea of even being a meal replacement. So there's different forms of carbohydrate in the cookie, number one. Number two, there's protein, and there's healthy fat. So we get a lot of people that eat these cookies as a meal replacement. And I know it sounds funny, but you can have these for breakfast.
So 2 cookies replace my eggs?
Yes.
Wow. And there's protein in it.
There's protein in it. We actually put protein in the cookie itself, which is very rare. Most cookies don't add protein to it. It may be whatever they have in the nuts and stuff like that, which we use as well, but we actually add some of the finest proteins in the world in that cookie.
In looking for gluten-free products, or somebody wants to cut down on gluten, you mentioned earlier that there are some symptoms that are common reactions to eating gluten. What are some of those?
Well, I mentioned some of the neurological ones, but you get other ones. I know these sound a little interesting, but obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, ADD, depression, anxiety, memory loss, brain fog, autism symptoms like we talked about, and some more psychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia.
Oh my! So the bread's got to go.
Yeah, there's more as well.
Well, we're going to take some time out. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. Dr. Greg Celaya is our guest. We're talking about a gluten-free diet. And in just a little bit, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Jamie Kaufman about acid reflux and how she is treating that much differently than the way she used to. We'll be doing that in about 15, 20 minutes from now here on Late Night Health. Join us at latenighthealth.com, latenighthealth.com. Dr. Celaya and the insane Daryl Wayne and I will return. Don't go away. More coming up.